So hello again. Hope you enjoyed yesterday's chapter 1. I'm going to read chapter 2 to you now. I have just finished for the day with my work on my second series. So yes, I'm a bit tired, but I hope I can do this justice for you. So chapter 2, A Silent Protest. Violet woke with a start as the car crunched to a stop over squashed gravel. It was dark. She pulled herself up from the warm leather seat and peered out the side window. The house was big, much bigger than her old house, and looked like something from a magazine. The lights were on inside. She gasped and ducked back down. Two dark figures, one tall, one small, stood shadowed in the light from the open doorway. Violet's father looked at her mother, then unbuckled his seatbelt and stepped out of the car. "Ah, Mr. and Mr. Archer," her father said, approaching the men. "We didn't expect a welcoming committee." "Well, of course, Dr. Brown. We wanted to see you settled," the taller one said, extending his hand. "We've been preparing all day. The house is spick and span, and we've the kettle on boil," the smaller man said, stepping in front of the larger one to grab her father's hand. "Leave your stuff in the car and come in for a brew. I'm sure you must all be exhausted." "Of course, how kind," her mother said, reaching the front door to greet both men. "We'd love a cuppa." The four entered the house, leaving Violet to fume in her seat, seemingly forgotten. "Violet, come in from the car, pet. It's chilly out there," her father called from across the driveway. He hadn't forgotten her after all. That still didn't mean he cared about her, though. He only cared about his job. When he was offered it, her mother said it was a job amongst jobs. It was probably like winning an Oscars for opticians. Her dad's exact words had been, "I'd be stupid, utterly stupid to turn it down." Her dad was an ophthalmologist, which meant he was an eye surgeon and cut up eyes all day. Violet thought that was disgusting, so whenever anybody asked, she said he was an optician. His work meant so much to him. Other people's parents always seemed to talk about how much they hated their jobs, but not her dad. Violet was proud of him, but then that didn't mean she was happy to pack up all her stuff and leave her friends just because of his new job. She thought he was selfish and had told him as much through her tears the night he announced they were moving. She pushed open the heavy car door and poked her head out to look left and right. The driveway was dark and surrounded by large trees. Huge twisted branches played on the wind, sweeping shadows across the gravel. Violet shivered as the leaves began to whisper. She jumped back and slammed the car door, locking herself safely inside. Her mum always said she had an overactive imagination. Violet wished she knew how to make it underactive. As she looked out in the dark yard, I'd imagined all the monsters that might lurk in the surrounding trees. She'd have to make a run for it. She took a deep breath. On the count of 3. 1, 2, 3! She flung open the car door, jumped out and ran for the house. Without looking left or right, she bounded up the steps and leaped over the threshold. Just as she slammed the front door, she thought she heard laughter echo through the trees. She slid down the wall onto the hall floor, trying to catch her breath. Surely it wasn't laughter. Then the car door banged and she froze. Was there someone outside? Her heartbeat quickened. "Violet, is that you, pet?" her mother called from the room down the hallway. "Come in and say hello to our guests." Violet shook the dark thoughts from her mind, putting all sounds down to the wind. "There goes your imagination again," she scolded herself, getting up from the floor. She pulled off her shoes and threw them down by the door. The hall was covered in shiny cream tiles, perfect for socks. She took a run and slid the whole way into the room straight ahead, coming to a stop against the kitchen table. 4 pairs of eyes stared at her, 2 in embarrassment, 2 in shock. "Violet," her father snapped, "we have guests."